So this question from Danielle says, Dr. Fuhrman, back in the 80s, I would always read that if you ate nuts, they should be either roasted or soaked, as they contain enzyme inhibitors that can make it so you can't absorb their nutrients. Now everyone advises eating raw nuts. What gives? Was the original information proven wrong at some point, or was it just forgotten? So, Dr. Fuhrman, do you soak your nuts?
Okay. First, my usual answer to that would be, as you know, was me. I hardly even use soap. But that's I'm not going to give that answer here today because that's too stupid and not. But in any case, the real answer is it's not that information was proved wrong. It was never right to begin with. It was a nonsensical, made-up idea. We just believe any kind of nonsense that people tell us or written in a, and so we didn't rely on scientific evidence sufficiently to come to a conclusion. And people take these things and think it's there. In any case, when food is cooked, some nutrients can be more readily absorbed, and some nutrients could be hurt or damaged in the process. And it has to do with, and certainly the protein bioavailability of nuts and seeds, which is significant, is reduced when you roast the nut. But if you lightly toast it, and you toast it yourself, so it's not as heavily toasted as commercial roasting is, it's not browned, like you could lightly toast your almonds or lightly toast your sesame seeds to enhance the flavor, and they're still going to be good for you and maintain and have good protein bioavailability. So yes, we can cook any food into oblivion. The more we cook a food, the more we damage it, but moderately cooked foods are still maintain some of those benefits. The same thing with broccoli. If you wok broccoli and moderately cook it, it's still really good for you. But if you cook it so it's totally mush and you overcook it, you can lose a lot of nutrients. But the moderately cooked broccoli and certain nutrients absorb better than the raw broccoli. The raw broccoli is still good for you, but like you asked me with the blueberries and the bananas, just because we lose some of it with cooked broccoli doesn't make cooked broccoli still a really good food. It's still, and the raw broccoli has some, is good, but maybe they were absorbing some nutrients better from cooked broccoli, like we do with tomatoes. We absorb some things better cooked. So the answer to the question is, yes, we should have most of our nuts raw or lightly toasted, not heavily roasted.
But the main thing is avoid the oil and the salt on your nuts.
Yes, the main thing is to, as we know, the conventional diet, most people get all their fat from animal fats and oils. Us Nutritarians get our fat from nuts and seeds and avocado. And every study and every person claiming fats are harmful in some way are using studies on oil, not on nuts and seeds. So we have a tremendous amount of false information being propagated because using oils is so detrimental to your health, even in small amounts. And, and of course, there's other studies that show that even using some olive oil in small amounts is better than no fat in your diet, because you can need some fat to get a maximum absorption of phytochemicals and antioxidants that prevent cancer and have anti-inflammatory effects. But it's still not as good as eating the whole nut or seeds, which obviously don't have the caloric rush and the obesity-promoting properties of oil, even olive oil.
Do you think that a half a cup of flax seeds in a smoothie is too much? And I don't want to bash any other doctor, especially because she has
You've asked me that. I think we've asked that on some previous thing. Yeah. I think it's too much. I think it's potentially harmful long-term for the rest of your life to have that.
But if you're doing it just for a short term to hyper-nourish, or is it too much in one serving, or is it too much for a whole day?
Well, it's too much for one serving, and it's too much for a whole day, and it's not a well-balanced diet. And it's not a well-balanced diet because it's not going to be lifespan promoting, and you don't need to do that to reverse your disease. I've taken care of thousands of people with autoimmune conditions and reversed. I've published on and had many wonderful rewarded experience. I discuss a lot of those cases in my books on my website, that you don't need to have a dangerous amount of flax. The point is that flax seeds have cadmium in them, have thallium in them, and they're a great food, but we shouldn't take any one food and eat so much of it. We should have a variety of food in our diet. So the variety of food in our diet keeps our body's ability to deal with toxicity without harming ourselves. There's natural toxins in the environment, and we have a variety of food. We get a variety of toxins in the way they're the way they're absorbed into the bloodstream. But when we take in one food in such a high amount, it could throw off that imbalance, and we could start to develop a negative effect from the toxicity of that one food.
Yeah. What do you think about an all raw or a high raw diet? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have sworn you once said that people that follow an exclusively raw diet long term have either mental or dental problems. Did you say that? Or did I just imagine that?
I think it was more, it may have said more likely to have dental problems, but because we have some risk of osteoporosis or atrophy of the teeth and gums if your diet is too high in fruit for your whole life and you don't have enough protein. But I most often critique a diet that's raw or too high in fruit as people enhancing immunosenescence with aging, which means is they get more deterioration of their immune system as they get older, because they're not absorbing enough protein in their diet. They're from too much fruit and too much, because by not eating beans, and unless your diet is like very heavy in nuts, where you're going and eating, it's very hard to get enough calories unless eating too much nuts or fruit or avocado or coconut when you're on a raw food diet. So it makes your diet more imbalanced. A person could do it, and some people may adapt to it, but my experience over the last 40 years has many raw foodists have developed infections, fungal infections, and bacterial infections in later life. And I think it's because their diet is too high in fruit in proportion to the other plant foods. So there are 5 categories of plant foods: fruit, vegetables, beans, nuts and seeds, and intact and whole grains are those 5 categories. And the only category low in protein is fruit. Beans, vegetables, intact whole grains, and nuts and seeds all have adequate protein. So when you have, and we cook the beans and we cook the grains and we cook and we eat both cooked and raw vegetables, we increase our vegetable exposure by being able to cook vegetables. We can eat more vegetables in our diet too, more greens too. And greens have no threshold effect. In other words, more greens are associated with longer lifespan. But in any case, when your diet becomes too high in fruit, as we age and our ability to assimilate and digest protein goes down, the lack of protein in the diet on a plant-based diet could be visibly affecting your health if you're eating all raw or too much fruit in your diet. Whereas if you're having cooked foods with beans and greens and and cooked grains, the more variety of different amino acids gives you better health and better protein bioavailability, keeping your immune strength as you age.
Yeah, there are some raw fooders now that are including sprouted oats because apparently they're raw, and even sprouted beans in their diet.
Right. So, I personally don't know why they have to do that. Why they have to do such nutritional gymnastics to get what they need. They could just why they can't eat some cooked beans? What's the fear of eating cooked beans? I don't know. But I also think that it's not even safe to eat some beans sprouted, like red kidney beans. You sprout them, they still have too many glutenins in them. You can sprout mung beans and lentils and other things, but even some beans aren't good to sprout. It's really best to cook them.
Yeah.
And why not be able to eat a red bean or a soybean cooked, or put it in a soup, or have some vegetable mushroom soup? I don't really see the health advantage they're going to glean from restricting themselves that far.
Yeah. Thank you.